The Gaza Peace Initiative announced a U.S. shutdown nears, the largest corporate buyout in history, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have announced a peace proposal for Gaza, though Hamas must agree to the plan in order to move forward. Trump and Netanyahu laid out the peace plan at a news conference Monday, and Palestine's government in the occupied West Bank, along with Arab countries, said they support it. Hamas will return all hostages within 72 hours, including the bodies of dead hostages. In return, Israel will release 250 Palestinian prisoners with life sentences and 1,700 Palestinians who were detained after October 7th. Hamas members who surrender and give up weapons will be given amnesty and passage to another country. Full aid to the Gaza Strip will resume when the deal is agreed to. Gaza would be governed under a temporary, transitional, apolitical Palestinian committee supervised by an international board of peace to be headed by Trump, with other foreign leaders, including former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. The U.S. government is scheduled to shut down at midnight. With the shutdown deadline looming, a meeting yesterday between President Trump and congressional leaders from both parties yielded no breakthrough on a deal to keep the government running once its current funding runs out. Democrats are demanding a budget that extends key Obamacare subsidies, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said that large differences remained between the parties after the meeting. Both sides are blaming the other for the stalemate. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said Democrats would not support a budget that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans, while Vice President J.D. Vance said we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. The current budget proposal is simply to maintain the status quo for several months, giving both sides time to agree to a final budget. The United Nations reimposed bruising economic and military sanctions on Iran over accusations that the country reneged on a 2015 nuclear deal. The so-called snapback mechanism activated by European nations could deepen Iran's economic isolation. Our people cannot handle more economic pressure or another war, one Iranian official said. Iran has seen rising public discontent over ballooning food prices, and the new sanctions will only add to those pressures. A Florida-based multi-agency task force has seized a record 1 million pounds of cocaine during fiscal year 2025. A haul officials say represents 378 million lethal doses, enough to kill every American. The seizure was announced by the Joint Interagency Task Force South, led by U.S. Southern Command. The unit, which includes the U.S. Coast Guard, works with partner nations to disrupt the flow of illicit drugs through the transit zone between South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and to weaken transnational criminal organizations. According to the task force, the amount of drugs seized over the past 12 months is enough to fill 42 dump trucks. Confiscating the drugs has denied cartels and narco-terrorists $11.34 billion in revenue and removed 377.9 million lethal doses from the streets. Two powerful storms are currently churning in the Atlantic, and while Tropical Storm Imelda and Hurricane Humberto aren't currently forecast to strike the U.S. directly, they're bringing heavy weather to the East Coast. Imelda is forecast to become a hurricane on Tuesday before curving out to sea, but its rains, high surf, and rip currents will pound Florida through the Carolinas into midweek. Officials in Florida say a man was killed after getting caught in a rip current over the weekend. Humberto, a Category 4 storm near Bermuda, is also generating dangerous swells that are driving towards the U.S., creating hazardous beach conditions over several days from Florida to Virginia. The video game publisher Electronic Arts announced on Monday that it agreed to be taken private in a deal valued at roughly $55 billion by a group of investors that includes a firm managed by President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. The deal would pay stockholders $210 per share in cash, a 25% premium to the company's share prices before news of the deal leaked. If completed, it would be the largest buyout of a publicly traded company to date, not adjusting for inflation. The investors would partly finance the deal with a $20 billion loan from JP Morgan Chase. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth Daily News Brief, as well as our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, with news analysis and commentary, and the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.